The Eagles finally get their first win of the season, an outlook at what the Eagles need to do to get a road win against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Falcons go 0-4. I'm Austin Bennett, and this is the Philly Cheesesteak. Welcome to the Philly Cheesesteak. As I said, I'm Austin Bennett. This is the first episode ever of the podcast. Basically, a little background info of myself. I'm a high school student in the Atlanta area, hence why I will be talking about the Falcons eventually. My dad grew up near Philly, and then he raised me as an Eagles and Philadelphia sports fan, and now I'm here many years later, still a Philadelphia sports fan, a very passionate sports fan. I'm a fan of all the teams, whether it be the Flyers, the 76ers, the Phillies, and the Eagles, along with Pennsylvania State University. Sadly, everyone except for the Eagles are in an off season right now. Penn State football is about to start up again soon, though. Very excited about that, as they have a chance really this season in a 7-game season to really take advantage of that. They got a pretty easy schedule, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. What we're talking about is the Eagles finally getting a win against the 49ers on Sunday night. They won 25-20. It was not necessarily an ugly game for the Eagles, but it wasn't very pretty either. Carson Wentz finished 18 for 28 with 193 yards, a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown. I believe it was a 13-yard rushing touchdown, and an interception. He also finished with a QBR of a very mediocre 73.7. That's something he's really been struggling with a lot this season. Although QBR is something that isn't truly a major stat. Like if you're trying to be an MVP candidate in the league, which Carson Wentz obviously will not be this season, sadly, then you're going to need a good QBR just to look good. But for example, Dak Prescott has, I'm sure, a QBR of over 100 on average this season. He threw for 450 yards against the Falcons, and yet only won by a point. He's 1-3. He scored 39 points last week with the Cowboys against the Browns and still lost. And I know partially that is because of the defense. But at the end of the day, what matters is wins and losses, not your QBR. Your QBR is not necessarily what decides whether you win or not. Obviously, again, it's nice to have a good QBR. That means you're playing just consistent and well and being good at your position. But at the end of the day, wins and losses are what matter. So they did decent. It was just decent. That's really all you can say. They scored over 20 points, which typically, if you can do that in an NFL game, you are going to have some success. But the rushing game honestly struggled after a very strong week last week against the Bengals, in which they tied. Miles Sanders played very well. I think he had over 100 yards rushing that game, or at least 100 yards from scrimmage. He's very integrated with the passing game with the Eagles because of the lack of wide receivers they have due to injuries, which we'll talk about in just a minute here. But this week, he was only 13 for 46. He ran 13 times, 46 yards. I know that the 49ers have a pretty solid run defense, right? Obviously, they're without Nick Bosa, which hurts, but they still have a pretty good defensive line, a pretty good linebacker core, which we saw a lot of that pressure on that offensive line last night. That's why Carson Wentz was running so much. That's why Carson Wentz was out of the pocket so much. That's why he got intercepted that game, was because of that good defensive line that the 49ers have. It's not anything that jumps out at you or anything that's really flashy, but they give good pressure and they do their jobs, right? So they did struggle, though, which wasn't great to see. Boston Scott did pretty good as more of just, he was almost a decoy, especially in that play where Carson Wentz scored the touchdown running. But it's good to see that they're still integrating a rotation among the running backs like they do with the defensive line. That's something they did very well with both of those positions, defensive line and running back, which got them to the Super Bowl, which really, in my opinion, won them the Super Bowl because of the Brandon Graham strip sack. I honestly think if you have Brandon Graham out there for 90% of the snaps, like most defenses would do, he doesn't have that energy in the fourth quarter to strip sack Tom Brady and win that football game, really. Um, so it's good to see that they're still rotating. I know that Miles Sanders is the bell cow now, but you definitely want to keep him fresh throughout the game. The defense finally showed up this game, which was very encouraging to see. I did not know this at the time until I was watching the game and the announcers mentioned it. When they got that first interception that game, that was their first interception of the season. We are 4 games in, and they got their first interception of the season. That is pitiful. I know that the Eagles secondary is not that great, but we just traded for Darius Slay. I'm a big fan of Jalen Mills. I think he's decent. I don't think he's great, but he's a solid player. Obviously, you lost Malcolm Jenkins, which is going to hurt. But this secondary is better than it was 2 or 3 years ago. And this game was the first game where they had an interception. That is really awful. But they showed up Sunday night. They got 5 sacks against a pretty decent offensive line, really. Not a bad defensive line, a pretty reliable offensive line that the 49ers have. They had 3 total turnovers. I believe it was 2 interceptions and a fumble. One of those interceptions was a pick 6 by Jalen Mills himself, I believe. That is right. Let me look that up. Anyways, we'll keep going though. Practice squatters, random players from the practice squad. It's been like this for years now, that they've just randomly shown up for the Eagles each and every game. I mean, you talk about Greg Ward Jr. last year, who we'll again talk about in a moment here. A guy played quarterback all college for the University of Houston, which is a D1 school, on practice squad for 3 or 4 years in the NFL, and then randomly becomes the number 1 wide receiver at the end of last season for the Eagles. And again, this season, I'm struggling to find that stat of whether it was Jalen Mills or not. I'm sorry about that. You'll have to correct me if I was wrong there. But he's still the number 1 wide receiver for this team this year, with injuries to Jalen Reagor, Deshaun Jackson, and Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson both practice limitedly, but still practice today. So hopefully they can get back this Sunday against the Steelers. But on Sunday night, this random guy by the name of Travis Fulgham, random guy from the practice squad, only catches 2 passes, right? So why are we talking about this guy? Because it was 2 passes for 57 yards and a touchdown. I don't think anyone except for his family knew who he was before Sunday night. Ends up recording, 57 yards. The most yards by a wide receiver that game. Or any receiver for that matter. So, practice squatters continue to almost bail out the Eagles. So, I guess they really do have depth that they've been talking about the last couple of years. Maybe not on their 53-man roster, but that practice squad looks real good. Anyways, and the biggest takeaway I had from this game was that Carson Wentz is running the football again. I was so shocked, and so was that 49ers defense when he ran for that first touchdown. I mean, no one was expecting that. Not a single person except for Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz in that offense. That's it. He even juked out a secondary, one of the players in the secondary, into the end zone. Everyone and their grandma thought that Boston Scott was getting that ball and running down the middle, and Carson Wentz just goes into the biggest gap ever and scores a 13-yarder. It was beautiful. It was beautifully executed. Great play call by Doug Peterson. Great execution by Carson Wentz to juke out the defender at the end there. It was just all great to see. Carson Wentz continued to run throughout the game, running for first downs, running for any yards he could really get. He even almost replicated his dive that tore his ACL against the Rams a few years ago when getting one of the first downs Sunday night. That one honestly scared me. I cringed a little bit seeing that with him getting hit from the side at that knee area, but he's obviously fine. So that was really huge to see. I think they need to continue doing that so that so that the defense, instead of assuming it's in that scenario where he scored a touchdown, Boston Scott every time, now they got to start guessing. Is it Boston Scott? Is it Carson Wentz? Is he going to pretend to run and throw it out to the flat? What is he going to do? If you can keep the defense on their toes like that, you're going to be able to do RPOs better. You're going to be able to do play action better. And the running backs are going to have more time because of that defense hesitating to find the gap, find the hole, and find yardage. It's going to benefit the entire team. Carson Wentz ran the ball a lot during that Super Bowl season. That's what allowed him to get time to throw on play action. It's what allowed the team to run very well with LeGarrette Blount. Sorry, I almost said Leonard Fournette. LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi. And then when Nick Foles came in, they were able to do RPOs with him basically in like half of the offensive plays. And it's really what led them to that Super Bowl victory. So it was very, very encouraging to see them running the ball again, finally, with Carson Wentz. Great to see his confidence coming back. All right, so there you go. There's my thoughts on that game against the 49ers. Now let's move on to the game this Sunday against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. There will be fans in attendance. I believe it was somewhere around 7,000 to 8,000, mainly season ticket holders. It's going to be at 1 p.m. again on Sunday. Eagles have a 32% chance to win according to the ESPN's Football Power Index, which I think is pretty accurate, honestly. I don't think they have any less of a chance to win, and I wouldn't give them a lot more. Maybe 35%, but that's kind of petty of a difference. Excuse me. So here's how I see the Eagles winning this game. It's obviously a tougher matchup for them, just because the Pittsburgh defense is really good. I mean, there's no doubt in that. So here's how I think they win. I think Carson Wentz has to give up at the most one turnover. I don't think we can afford any more than that. Not just because Carson Wentz has been doing it too much this season, but I also still cannot really rely on the defense bringing in any turnovers on our end either. As I said earlier, last week was the first week where the Eagles had an interception on defense, so I don't trust that defense with turnovers just yet. The linebackers have to play football. I don't know what sport they've been playing the last few weeks. Somehow Duke Riley leads the team in tackles. He's their middle linebacker right now. I don't know how that makes any sense, honestly. The fact that the other 10 players on the field can't get more tackles than him is honestly kind of sad to me. But Nathan Gary, it's not Duke Riley. It's Nathan Gary who leads the team in tackles. Nathan Gary is atrocious at pass defense. I mean, you go back and look at that game against the Rams. He could not guard a player or a tight end to save his life. And then he did it again on a touchdown pass by Joe Burrow the next week against the Bengals. I could put my 4-month-old puppy out there on the field with an Eagles helmet from the souvenir stand at the stadium, and she would do a better job guarding the players out there than Nathan Gary. I'm telling you, he in that touchdown against the Bengals, he forgot which sport he was playing. In that touchdown against the Rams, he was barely within the camera's field of view. It was awful. So the linebackers need to play football this week because James Conner is a good running back. We saw that the last 2 seasons. He has been a very solid running back. I watched him play at Pitt when they played against Penn State. He's a fighter, man. He battled cancer, beat cancer. He knows what it takes to win. He can really punish you if you can't limit him. I'm not saying stop James Conner because I don't see the linebackers doing that, but limit him. If you can keep him under 100 yards of scrimmage and one touchdown max, I think we've got a good chance. Secondly, the secondary just has to focus on Juju Smith-Schuster. I fully expect Darius Slay to guard him the entire game. That would be the most logical option, obviously. And I trust Darius Slay, really, to do well in that matchup. I think on 3rd down and long, when you're looking at 3rd and 7 or more, I could really see the Eagles doing, they like to do their picket fence defense on those 3rd and long situations where they'll put 4 or 5 defensive backs out there and line up pretty much on the 1st down line and just guard anything there or farther. But I think they're going to continue doing the 5 defensive back formations on 3rd and long, and I would not be surprised if I see them double teaming Juju Smith-Schuster on those 3rd and long situations. I just think that would be the smart thing to do. I really don't see a ton of other weapons that the Steelers have other than Juju Smith-Schuster. Um, this game is really going to rely on the Eagles' defense a lot. I honestly am not really concerned about the offense just yet. Obviously, we have to look at those injuries they have on the offensive line. Jason Kelce was limited in practice today, and Lane Johnson did not practice today, which is not good for the Eagles at all. They're now down to just one starter from week 1, which is awful in just 4 weeks. But still, I think they can do okay. I think it's almost a good thing that Carson Wentz will be out of the pocket. I'm mainly focused on the defense. If they can win the turnover battle, force Ben Roethlisberger to throw 1 or 2 interceptions, which he's been doing more often the older he gets, ever since he turned 40. Right, he's 40 now, right? I think he's 40. Let me see here. I'm looking it up. No, he's 38. I'm sorry. Ever since he turned like 35 or so, 3 or 4 years ago, he's really been throwing a lot more interceptions the last couple of seasons. So I think the defensive line just does their job, apply some pressure, and capitalize on that. My prediction on the offensive side, I think Greg Ward Jr. is going to have a big game, especially if Deshaun Jackson or Alshon Jeffrey is A, able to come back and play this game, and B, able to complete the entire game. Deshaun Jackson has already played in 2 games this season, but he hasn't completed either of them, or played in half the snaps in either of those games. So I think if we can get one, I guess you'd say, real wide receiver out there on the field this week, take a little bit of that coverage off of Greg Ward Jr. because he's a smaller dude. Get him open a couple times. I think if one of those wide receivers plays this week, Greg Ward Jr. is going to have a huge game, similar to that one against the then Redskins last season, towards the end of the season, that really helped them with their push to the playoffs as a 9-17. So those are my points I have for the Eagles next week. If they can really just play defense, Wentz plays consistently, and we get another wide receiver out there, I think we can find success. I don't think it's an impossible matchup like it looked a few weeks ago. I was telling my dad the other day, before that Sunday night game, I said, man, because I have a tradition, kind of, where every Monday after an Eagles win, or I guess if it's a Monday or Thursday game, every day after an Eagles win, I go to school in my Carson Wentz jersey, right? I was like, if I can just get one day before Thanksgiving, where I get to go into school wearing my Carson Wentz jersey, that would be amazing. I got it, of course, on Monday. But I was really expecting the Eagles to go 0-5-1 the first 6 games after, of course, they went 0-2-1. I really did not see them winning these next 3 games. They've beaten the 49ers, and now I'm really thinking, okay, this Steelers matchup is not impossible. They are capable of winning, even though they lost to 3 teams they really could have beaten. And it's not as impossible for them anymore. So I think if they can just play defense, Carson Wentz plays consistent, and we get a wide receiver out there, we're going to have some success. All right, now moving on to our final topic of the night, the Falcons. The Falcons, they're 0-4 to start the season. It's really quite atrocious. They have blown 16-point or larger leads twice this season now. A 16-point lead against the Bears and a 20-0 lead against the Dallas Cowgirls. They lost on Monday night to the Packers in really, despite the score, a dominating fashion, 30-16. It was only a 14-point difference, but it really felt like quite a lot more. Aaron Rodgers continues to just put out MVP-type numbers. He went 27 for 33, which is 82% completion rate. That is unbelievable if you're throwing more than 30 passes and you're connecting on over 80%. That is amazing, honestly. 327 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I'm going to be honest, the Falcons secondary is pretty young, but it's not the worst in the league. Obviously, the Cowgirls have the worst secondary in the league, honestly, in my opinion. The Falcons are close behind. But the fact that you could only force 6 incompletions, which I'm gonna guess and say only half of those were because of the defense, half were either over or underthrown, or the wide receiver read the ball wrong or ran the route wrong or something like that. 6 incompletions all game. You can't win against any team, maybe even in college, if you're only forcing 6 incompletions in a game. He had 4 touchdowns as well, if I didn't mention that already. There's really only one bright spot for the Atlanta Falcons this season so far, and it's been Todd Gurley. He's about the only good player on this team. He went 16 carries for 57 yards, which isn't that great, but he did score 2 touchdowns. So that's maybe the only glimmer of hope you have as a Falcons fan this season, which is, hey, we have Todd Gurley. I don't know how many years he has left on his contract. I'm looking that up right now. Years left on contract, because they did trade for him, right? Or did they sign him? They cut him on a 4-year contract. So he's got, 2 years? 3 years maybe? So this is not his last year with the Falcons, at least I'm assuming. So there you go. You have a bright spot, Falcons fans. You have something to look forward to. You have a decent running back, a pretty good running back. I would say, yes, he's better than Devonta Freeman right now, obviously. So there's maybe your one and only upgrade this season. Julio Jones got hurt again, and this is the only Falcons news, honestly, this week where I'm not happy about. A, because it's a player getting hurt. You never want to see that, no matter who it is. And B, because, well, Julio Jones is on my fantasy team. And he's my number 1 wide receiver. But this is the second or third time this season he's gotten hurt. He's dealt with hamstring injuries in the past. He's had turf toe, all sorts of stuff. The guy just can't stay healthy anymore, and it's really sad, honestly. He's starting to get older. He's still great. He still is amazing. I mean, that game, the game against the Cowboys, he went absolute nuts in the second half, even though they ended up losing. He's still an absolute beast and a top 5 wide receiver easily. But I think they need to sit him out the next couple weeks, especially with their upcoming schedule being pretty easy. Let the guy actually get to 100%. I really don't know why they played him Monday night, honestly, because he wasn't 100%. If he was 100%, he wouldn't be injured right now, re-aggravating that hamstring. They didn't have a chance against the Packers. No one thought they did. My Falcons fans' friends, how do you say that right? My friends who are Falcons fans didn't even think they had a chance. They didn't even think they were going to get a lead, and they didn't. So I don't know why they played him if he wasn't 100%. That really aggravates me as a fantasy owner of his and just an overall NFL fan. That just doesn't make sense to me. So they need to sit him out the next couple weeks. It's probably going to take a couple weeks anyways, and make sure he's at 100%. He's not arguably, he's most definitely the best player on the team. You need to keep him healthy because he was the only bright spot you had before Todd Gurley, but right now you don't even have Julio Jones on the field, so he can't be your bright spot. Another issue for the Falcons, and I saw this coming when the extension happened in 2018. You're stuck with Matt Ryan until 2023. Matt Ryan is 36 years old now? Looking this up. Matt Ryan age. 35 years old. 35 years old. He's been playing since 2008. You've got 3 years left on his contract. He's not awful, but he has definitely become a game manager. I'm watching these highlights from this game because A, I was at work, and B, I'm not staying up till 11:30 watching the Falcons lose. But I'm watching the highlights. I honestly thought that Eli Manning was playing quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons that game. It was so Eli Manning-like, the performance that Matt Ryan gave. Just dink and dunk everywhere. 5 yards, 7 yards, 10 yards. I would love to know, did Matt Ryan have a single pass that game over 20 yards? I would really love to know that because I don't remember watching any. It's starting to get a little sad. He's definitely become a game manager. I don't think he's ever going to reach the MVP level he had back in 2016, which was really an unbelievable season. I don't know how he did it because I never really thought he was a great quarterback. I thought he was a very reliable, good, top 10 quarterback, not now necessarily, but throughout his career. But now he's just a game manager. I guess it's the age. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he got complacent, but he's just a game manager now. He finished 28 for 39, 285 yards, and not a single touchdown. Listen, if your quarterback's getting paid over $25 million a year, and he's not scoring at least one touchdown a game, he's not a good quarterback. He doesn't deserve to get paid that much. I'm just being real. Okay? They paid him that contract extension simply because of that MVP season. Simply because of his history. Simply because of his tenure with the team. I was very, very skeptical of that contract, and I am now. And it really stinks because the Falcons totally could be farming up a quarterback group right now, but they still have 3 years with them, so they have to wait at least 1 year. It really doesn't make sense. It gets Matt Ryan aggravated, kind of like how you see with Aaron Rodgers right now, which might be a good thing because Aaron Rodgers is going absolutely crazy. But now you got to wait at least 1 year to work with Matt, to wait to get a quarterback that will work with Matt Ryan. So who knows? Maybe they want Trevor Lawrence. Maybe they want to compete with the Jets. I honestly don't think that the Falcons came into the season trying to tank. Now they might because it's probably the most logical thing for them now. But yeah, I never liked the idea of a contract extension for Matt Ryan, especially one through 2023. He's gonna be 38. He's gonna be 38 years old when that thing ends. And he most definitely will not be re-signed to the Falcons. That will be the end of him with the Falcons, I believe, unless he wants to become a coach. So yeah, and I don't see them trading for any quarterback or anything like that, obviously, because you're gonna draft a guy and have him work with Matt Ryan for 2 seasons and then him take over eventually. So, if it was a 2-year extension and they were able to start working on a QB now, I think that would be a lot more ideal and give Falcons fans more hope for this season, especially because you would probably see that quarterback who was drafted out there on the field by now getting a couple practice snaps in because of how bad they've been. But then again, the draft class last season didn't have a great quarterback group. I would definitely say that this year's quarterback group is a lot better. But who knows? Now they could even wait till next draft in 2022 and try to get a guy like Justin Fields. I think that would be a really, really cool matchup to see, especially because Justin Fields is from Georgia. But yeah, they're stuck with Matt Ryan for 3 years. That's probably the biggest problem of this team. The fact that they have to rely on him for 3 seasons now. I don't know if y'all heard that voice crack, but I definitely did. Yeah. And one more thing, I guess, I don't know if the Falcons should look forward to this or what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but basically not look forward to this. Their upcoming schedule. They play the Panthers twice in weeks 5 and 8. They're 2-2. What's weird about that, though, is they went 0-2 with Christian McCaffrey, then he tore his ACL, and now they're 2-0 without him. Really strange. Teddy Bridgewater's been playing pretty decently with Robbie Anderson, but I really don't know how they've been winning games. They really don't have a ton of anything on that team, but they're 2-2 right now. So I think that's actually going to be a pretty interesting matchup this week to watch. Falcons versus Panthers. I really don't know who would win that game. Then they play the Vikings, who are 1-3, just got a win over the Texans, I believe, which that's another big shocker. I don't know why they are 1-3, but they are. That was a playoff team last season, a team that beat the Saints in the wild card round. And you look at that talent. You got Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph. You just traded for what's his name? No, not Stephon Diggs. That's who you traded away. Gosh, I want to say Brandon Cooks, but I know I'm probably wrong. But yeah, you would think that, and they have a decent defense. But I knew watching them back in 2017 that the salary cap was going to get to them. They wouldn't be able to have as good a defense in the future just because they were paying the guys too much, and now they have a really bad secondary. But you really think that the offense would still make up for that, but no, not really. Then they play the Lions 1-3, and the Lions are, well, the Lions. I mean, what more can you really say? Matthew Stafford never thought he was a great quarterback ever. I thought he was pretty good in college, but that's partially because of A.J. Green. Another Georgia alum, by the way. Both A.J. Green and Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford, he really has never been a top 5 quarterback. And you guys got to remember, a few seasons ago, Matthew Stafford was the number 1 paid player in the NFL. He got a lot of scrutiny for that, by the way, which I think is kind of well deserved. Like, obviously, for him, you're taking that contract. I think they really shouldn't have poked fun at Matthew Stafford so much as the Lions front office. Like, the fact that you're giving that guy that kind of a contract is really quite unbelievable. Yeah, Matthew Stafford, another game manager type quarterback nowadays. He really was never a flashy quarterback in the first place. But that'll be another interesting game. We really don't know who will win that. So the good news for the Falcons, they can go 3-1 these next 4 games. They can beat the Panthers twice, I think, and I think they're going to lose to the Vikings, especially if Julio isn't playing, which he shouldn't. Let the man heal up. I think they can beat the Lions, and I think again they can beat the Panthers twice. So it's not all over for the Falcons, but it kind of is at the same time. And what I mean by that is they can still go out there and win games, right? They're not going to go 0-16. Don't freak out, everybody. That's not going to happen. But it's really tough for them now because they're in such a good division. You've got Drew Brees and the Saints, although they're struggling without Michael Thomas. You've got Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, which really have, despite their already Super Bowl contender status at the beginning of the season, really exceeded expectations. I honestly thought it was going to take a full season for Tom Brady to gel with a new quarterback, or not a new quarterback, new coach and a new team. But no, the man's the GOAT. He took 1 week, I guess 2 weeks technically, because that week 2 game wasn't great for him, and he's taken off. He did amazing last week, 5 touchdowns, and get this, he won Offensive Player of the Week for the first time in his career. Won NFC Offensive Player of the Week. He's never done that before, which is really unbelievable. The fact that the greatest player of all time, it took him what is it, 20 seasons now? He's 42 or something like that. Took him 20-some seasons to get Offensive Player of the Week. This guy's won multiple MVPs, multiple Super Bowl MVPs, 6 rings, and he's just now getting his first Offensive Player of the Week. That's kind of wild. So yeah, I saw the Falcons being 3rd in the division already. So it's just a really, really unfortunate year for the Falcons from the get-go, with their injuries, with their chokes, with the division they're in, with the coaching, the quarterback play. It's all really bad, and I am kind of a little sad for the Falcons fans, all my friends who are Falcons fans, because I've been there as an Eagles fan. I've been there as a Philadelphia fan, for crying out loud. It took this team 52 years to win a Super Bowl. 52. Now the Falcons haven't won one either. But it's really nowadays got to take some resilience to still be a Falcons fan, especially I think by the end of the season, because it's not going to get a ton better. You're not going to go 0-16, Falcons fans. You got that to look forward to. You're going to win a game eventually, but it's not going to be a pretty season, and it stinks a little. But it might end up being good in the end because you're going to draft a quarterback, hopefully, this draft. You're going to be able to work out Matt Ryan because he's really not good anymore. I know you guys love him, but he's not good. He's become a game manager, and you cannot win championships with the game manager. Last team to try to do that was the Jaguars in 2017. They made it to the AFC Championship, which was very impressive, but then they lost to the Patriots. Of course, that was with Blake Bortles. So, sometimes change can be a good thing, and change for the Falcons is about the only good thing that can happen now this season, honestly, when you look at it from a large picture. So I don't expect them to fire Dan Quinn. during the season unless they lose 3 of the next 4. Then that may, or more. If they lose all 4, then yes, he's going to be out. But I don't see that happening. I don't see Matt Ryan getting benched simply because they don't have anyone else who's better or slightly worse to put out there. But eventually that change is going to occur, and it's really going to benefit them. So just hang in there, Falcons fans. As a 76ers fan, just know you're not going to have to go through 4 seasons of this losing mentality like I had to. Hopefully for you guys, it's only going to be last season and this season, and then you guys are really going to start making some adjustments and getting better. Because I do like seeing the Falcons getting some success sometimes, despite me overall just not liking them out of the fun of it. But hey, whenever they can beat an NFC East team, I'll root for them. So get to that point where you're beating only NFC East teams, except for the Eagles, and then I'll be happy. And you should be happy too. So, again, finally, hang in there, Falcons fans. You've only got 12 more games to go. It's going to be okay. Yeah. There you go. That's it. That's the first episode of the Philly Cheese Take. Thank you for listening. I'm going to try to put these out weekly. I do have a job. I am working on getting my Eagle Scout soon here, and I'm in high school, so things will get busy sometimes during times like midterms and finals. I'll definitely have to scale it down a bit, but I'm going to do my very best to produce these weekly for you guys. Please let me know down in the comment section what you guys want to see more of, any types of segments you guys want me to do, whether it be about funny stories in sports from the week, fantasy football stuff, or anything random really. I'm down to do anything. Obviously, I want to keep it majority sports, but I'm willing to expand on some other topics a little bit if you guys want to see that. Just give me any suggestions or comments or thoughts. I will take any sort of criticism or compliments. I want to know what I need to improve on, what I need to get better at. But at the end of the day, thank you so much for listening. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next episode.